The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Make sure not to exit out because it will exit out.
Hello, and thank you for dealing with us through the technical issues. Just want to make sure you can hear us now. If you could type something into the question box to let us know that you can hear us. Okay, sounds like we're good to go. All right, we're going to just take a step back. All right, thank you so much for being patient. So hello and welcome to the Early Childhood Innovation Zone Data Collection webinar. We appreciate your time as we share important information about data and evaluation for our innovation zones. My name is Renee Tetrick, Program Innovation Analyst at Illinois Action for Children. I'll be facilitating the webinar today. We're glad to have our innovation zone leads and coordinators on the call, as well as our evaluators from ICAM. Before we get started, let's briefly review some helpful GoToWebinar tips. Everyone is muted, so if you have a question, please raise your hand, and we can unmute you so you can ask your question aloud. You can also type your question into the question box, and Tally will be here assisting me to help answer some of those questions for you today. We'll also be stopping periodically to give you some time to answer those questions. If you have any technical issues, please send an email to Tally, and she'll help address that for you. Also, so you know, we'll be recording the session to share with everyone after. All right, let's get started. As a part of our webinar today, we will briefly review the purpose of today's meeting. We'll then give an overview of Innovation Zone evaluation goals and plans, and then we'll discuss our various roles and responsibilities for data collection. Next, we'll review the data collection forms and process. During this section, we'll pause to answer any questions about the forms. And finally, we'll review our timeline for data collection. Today, the purpose of today's call is to learn about the goals of Innovation Zone evaluation, to learn about our roles and responsibilities as they relate to the data collection, and we will also thoroughly review the data collection forms, process, and timeline. Finally, we hope to provide space and time to discuss any questions about data collection. Let's take a look at Innovation Zone evaluation goals and plans. As you know, the two major goals of our Innovation Zones are to increase enrollment of priority population children in high-quality early learning and development programs, and to increase the number of formal early care and education programs in ExceleRate, Illinois that attain a silver and gold circle quality. The evaluators will be assessing two levels of work, one being the local strategies that have been identified to increase enrollment of children from priority populations and quality of early childhood programs and services. In other words, how have local innovations had an effect on outcomes? What are the outcomes that have been affected? By how much and for whom? The second level is whether state efforts to inform the early childhood system might increase access to high-quality early learning. Meaning, how have support for technical assistance and training made a difference? And how have policy and practice feedback loops worked? While these questions seem very straightforward, they can be hard to answer. The primary goal of the evaluation study is to make recommendations on how the state might engage local communities to affect state systems change to increase quality and enrollment of high-need children. In other words, we want to know, do investments made by the state in building local systems lead to increased program quality and enrollment of high-needs children? So how are we going to measure outcomes? To better understand how these innovative strategies are working, we'll focus on the measurable outcomes in the green box here on your screen. While the evaluators are using several different methods to collect and analyze information, for today's purposes, we'll be discussing some of the quantitative measures the evaluators will use to understand the impact, if any, of Innovation Zone strategies. Here you can see an example of what we mean by measurable outcome. The evaluators will be looking at the Innovation Zone itself, the priority populations that are being targeted, and the problem identified by the community. They will study the treatment or innovation that was developed to address the problem. In this case, as you can see here, families are isolated by a complicated system, and the community is developing a pipeline to reduce those barriers. Here on the right, you can see the outcome that's being measured is that more children in deep poverty and poverty are being served by high-quality early learning programs after 1 year of improving that pipeline. The timeline for this fiscal year's data collection are laid out here. Right now, we're focused on collecting quantitative data, which the evaluators will use to analyze and report. We'll go through another cycle of data collection in the spring, and we'll discuss specific dates in just a minute. And next fiscal year, we'll follow the same general timeline. So you're probably asking, how are we going to collect this local level data? Let's start by reviewing our roles and responsibilities. The roles and responsibilities for our participants are listed on the next few slides. I'll highlight just a few items and let you review others on your own time. The Innovation Zone support team, which includes Leah, Tali, and Renee, will be working directly with Innovation Zone leads and participating early learning program leaders in the zones to train on data collection. We'll be responsible for submitting that data to ICAM. Innovation Zone leads will help coordinate a data meeting with participating programs and help with follow-up on data collection. They'll also complete and submit Form Q14, which is the ExceleRate Program Quality Form, and we'll get to that in just 1 minute. We're asking that all participating early childhood programs attend the data collection meeting in their zone, to also complete and submit Form HN14, and also work with zone leads to complete Form Q14. We'll review both forms in just 1 minute. Along with conducting interviews and collecting other qualitative data, ICAM will analyze program-level quantitative data, data collected from the forms we're reviewing today. ICAM will also be collecting and reviewing community-level data. Let's take a look at the forms. Let's start first with the Priority Population Enrollment form. Here is the front page of the High Needs Innovation Participating Early Childhood Education Program Enrollment Form, also known as Form HN14. HN stands for High Needs, and 14 is the year we are currently in. This form goes to all participating early childhood programs in the Innovation Zone. The purpose of this form is to collect total enrollment and priority population enrollment. This form is to be submitted to me, Renee Tetrick, either by mail or email. This form will be completed twice a year, once in the fall and once in the spring. For this fall, we are asking programs to use enrollment numbers on October 15, 2014. We would like all forms submitted by December 19, 2014. For the spring, we'll use the enrollment date of April 15th, and all forms will be submitted on May 30th, 2015. Every Innovation Zone will be using this form. If programs use their own enrollment or intake form, simply transfer that data to Form HN14. Here are the instructions for this form. There's a lot of information here on the screen, but let's walk through the form using these instructions. Here's what the first page of the form looks like. Let's make it a little bit bigger and walk through the sections on the form. For Table A, on the left side, that says Participant Information, you will include an assigned unique identification number for each child enrolled in your program. This number will correspond to the child's name and is used for confidentiality purposes when submitting the data. You'll also insert the enrollment date of that child when that child enrolled in your program. You'll also insert the 5-digit zip code in which the child resides. For Table B, the midsection in green, please check all priority populations for each enrolled child. If child with ID number 5 is homeless and also living in poverty, you would check both boxes in Table B. On page 2 of this form, we inserted the terms from the table heading and ascription to make each of these terms more clear. So you'll see teen parent, which showed up in the table on the previous page, has a description of the mother being age 19 or younger of the time of the child's birth. So the term here and the description correspond. Where it says other high needs, we'll work with you to individualize this form to include other high needs populations of interest, such as CCAP or extreme poverty, if that's what your zone is working to address. For Table C, on the far right side in purple, please check all categories that describe how each enrolled child's family reported learning about your program. Again, going back to page 2 of the form, you will see terms for Table C and a description. Again, I will work with you to individualize your form to include other innovations or referral strategies that are unique to your zone. For example, for Cicero, we would add pop-up preschool as a referral strategy. Let's take a look at how to tally and total the data. Here's the last page of the form. Here is a view of the table headings with the totaling section seen in light blue. For Table D, you will see space to add up the individual column totals. Add up each checked box in each column for both Table B and Table C. This will give you a nice view of which priority populations are being served in your program, as well as the referral methods of families. Table E, you will be adding up total enrollment. Here, add up the number of completed rows to get the total enrollment number. So total enrollment would equal the priority populations and all other enrollments. Enter that number into Table E for total enrollment. For Table F, you will add up the number of rows containing a checkbox in the priority populations. So that would be all columns except none. If a row has more than one checked box, please only count it once. You'd put the number of children who are from priority populations under total priority population. Let's take a look at an example. Here you will see that the child's ID number filled in, the enrollment date, and the zip code have all been entered. The program has checked off the boxes that describe the population characteristics of the children and how the family learned about the program. Table D is simply counting the check boxes for each population characteristic and referral method. For example, under poverty, there are 3 check boxes and 3 is inserted in the total for that column. For Table E, you will just add up the number of completed rows. There are 8 completed rows and 8 children represented here in the form. Therefore, the total enrollment is 8. For Table F, you're counting the number of rows that have a check in the priority population. If the row has more than one checked box, please only count it once. For example, let's take a look at child with ID number 6. This child is living in poverty and linguistically isolated. You would check both boxes in Table B, but you would only count that child once for Table F. This is because we do not want to count this child twice in Table F. We do not want a duplicate count. All right, I know that was a lot of information. I'd love to take any questions that you have now on Form HN14 on enrollment for priority populations. So I have a great question here coming from our evaluators asking, will the person completing the form make the ID number correspond with the child's name? And will that person be the only one who has access to the key to ensure confidentiality? That's a really great question. Yes, so the person completing the form, it's perfectly fine if they have a list of all the children's names and then they would correspond that to a unique ID number. So you could literally just choose 1 through 30, or you could have a more specified number, and you would include that in your own sheet, in your own form, and then within the form that you submit to us, you would just include that ID number. So you would keep track of the child's name and number, and we would just get the number, so to remove all identifying characteristics from that child. Hopefully that answers that question, but feel free to follow up with any additional items. Another question that I'm receiving is, when will we have access to these forms? Great question. What I'm hoping to do in the next couple of days is individualize the form. So I'd be working with you to complete Table B and C to make sure that we're including any special, unique things about your zone in terms of priority populations that are of interest that aren't already included, or referral strategies that aren't included. So within the next couple of days, I'll be working with you to get that information. I'll individualize the form and have those sent out to you likely the first week of December. And we have a strategy for sharing these forms with your programs, because we'd love to give whatever support we can for data collection. We have another great question asking, we'll be doing this for each high-quality program in our innovation zone, a concern about not having this information collected in some of the zones, and the volume of pre-K programs that would need to fill out this form in a very short period of time. Really great questions. Our goal here is to start with participating programs within the zone. So this wouldn't be every single program within your zone. These are programs that are participating within your innovation zone and really working on these strategies. We thought this would be a great place to start, and we can see how we can expand from there. In regards to the question about being able to collect this information, I know that a few programs, North Lawndale, Aurora, others have intake forms that they're using that have these characteristics listed. So that would be a great way to take that information from those intake forms themselves. If for some reason that you find that information would be hard to collect, we can talk offline one-on-one and see how we might be able to get at that information. Another great question. Given that it's the holiday time and that a lot of programs are very busy, will the support team be able to follow up with the programs completing the form? Yes, definitely. What we're hoping to do is that the support team, we're going to get to this in a second, but would come to your zone and actually present on this information, and we would be the ones following up with the program. If you have a really deep relationship with the program, we'd love any assistance that you could provide, but we could take ownership of that aspect. There's a question about when to submit the forms. We're going to go through the timeline in just a second. December 19th is the date at which we're asking the forms to be submitted, but again, we're willing to work with you. There's a question wondering if programs are still working on building those relationships and not yet enrolling children, and wondering if this is still true. I might leave that for if there's an Innovation Zone coordinator out there that would like to chime in on that question. My understanding is that many Innovation Zones are building relationships, and a goal right now is to get a baseline. So whether programs are enrolling or not, really to get a snapshot of where programs are at and how that improves over time. We had one question from Delilah and Aurora. We're interested in your question. I wanted to see if maybe you'd be interested in clarifying it. If so, if you want to raise your hand, we could unmute you and you could ask that question out loud. Okay, great. I'm going to unmute you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Delilah, you're on the line. Go ahead.
I had a question about the enrollment date. Do you mean like the enrollment into the, like when we fill out an intake form at, say, the food pantry or the homeless shelter, or do you mean an enrollment date as into if they enroll into a high quality program?
That's a great question. So it sounds like you're wondering about the date itself, whether it's a date, an intake date or an enrollment date?
Well, like the intake date that we get them at, like let's say at the homeless shelter, or if they are able, if the parent does decide to go to a high quality early learning program in our community, is that the enrollment date that you're looking for, or for our 3 partner agencies?
That's a great question. We'll be concerned with your participating programs, and in terms of the date, I believe we're going to be most interested in that enrollment date, but I'm going to seek clarity on that for you and get back to you on that question.
And with the participating programs, you mean the 3 partner agencies or the programs that are also doing the quality?
We'll clarify that for you too,
Right.
just because I want to make sure to get you the right information. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks so much for your question.
Sure.
We're just checking to see if there's any final questions before we move on. We do have a question on if we need to seek consent for programs to share the child's enrollment information with another party. We're going to check on that as well in terms of what type of consent we might need. Thank you for these questions. These are great. And while we don't have maybe all the answers now, do know that this is kind of an experiment, and we'll make sure we get all the questions answered for you. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next forum, but do know that we can go back to any questions that you have. All right, let's take a look at the program quality form. Here is the front page of the ExceleRate Program Quality Form Q14. Q stands for quality and 14 for the year. This form goes to all Innovation Zone leads and coordinators. Innovation Zone leads will work with a participating early childhood education program leader to complete this form. This form indicates the extent to which the program has reached an ExceleRate circle or the extent to which they have begun to address quality. This form will also be mailed or emailed to Renee. We're asking for the quality rating of the program as of November 15, 2014. Please also submit this form by December 19, 2014. We'll also collect this form again in the spring. Here is Form Q14. You will check one box for the current quality status in Table A. You will check one box for the quality target of the program in Table B. And you will check all categories that describe where the program is in the quality process in Table C. Let's take a closer look. Let's say a program is currently licensed, not yet rated, but pursuing a bronze circle of quality. You would check licensed in Table A and bronze in Table B. If the program attended an orientation and the training on understanding continuous quality improvement and is participating in a peer support group, you would mark those boxes and the box labeled preparing in Table C. The asterisks that you see at the end of some of the options in Table C under Quality Process, those asterisks are items that are required to move forward in quality rating. All right, let's take another break for questions on this form. Also, just a reminder that you can raise your hand so we know that you have a question. You're also welcome to chat directly into the question box, and we can read those aloud and answer them directly. Okay, it seems like no questions there, but we can always pop back to that form if something comes up in the next couple minutes. So to help support data collection in innovation zones, we'd like to schedule a data collection information session in your zone. This would be a 1-hour in-person training session with you in participating early childhood programs in your zone. The Innovation Zone lead would help coordinate the day, place, and time, and Renee would facilitate and train the group. This meeting should take place between December 1st and 12th at a time that is convenient for you and the programs. Renee will follow up with you each in the coming days about a time and day that will work best for you. Here are some key dates for data collection. The Priority Population Enrollment Form, Form HN14, is to be completed by each participating early childhood program using enrollment numbers from October 15, 2014. This should be submitted by December 19, 2014. The Quality Improvement Form, Form Q14, will be completed by the Innovation Zone lead or coordinator, and they will work with the participating early childhood program to complete this form. This will be quality information about the programs as of November 15, 2014, and should also be submitted by December 19, 2014. Where should you submit this data? There are two options. One, you can scan and email the forms to Renee at the email address on the screen, or you can mail the forms directly to Renee at the address on your screen. And if you have any questions, you can always call Renee at the number on the screen. So here's the timeline again. After reviewing the data collection forms, process, and timeline, are there any questions? And again, feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to speak directly, or type your question into the question box. There's a question about having access to the PowerPoint for reference. Absolutely. I'm going to send out the PowerPoint and the webinar recording later today. So you'll have that in front of you. Okay, I'm going to give just one more minute just in case any burning questions are coming up. Another great question from Aurora. They have a family resource specialist and 2 interns that are helping with the high needs families and with enrollment. they'll be doing a lot of the data collecting there in Aurora, it sounds like. And the question is it necessary for our whole high needs Innovation Zone team to be a part of this meeting, the data collection meeting? No, it's not necessary or a requirement. Really, we're hoping that the Innovation Zone lead is available, and then if you want to have a core team member or two that you think would be important to be there, that's great. And then it would be the participating programs at the table. And really the idea with this is to provide extra support around data collection. We really want to make sure that we're getting accurate, reliable data. And just to be available for you and for the programs to answer any questions directly. And I know we have a few questions here that we're going to find out more about today, so we'll make sure that we are armed with information for those sessions. Great questions. Anything else coming up? And after I send out the recording and the presentation, please feel free to send any other questions that you may have. We're happy to address any concerns, questions that you have. I want to thank you so much for your time today. We know that data collection can feel overwhelming, but we're hoping to make this a really smooth process for us. We hope this presentation was helpful, and we really look forward to working together to collect data. Just a reminder, I'll be sending the recording of the webinar and the PowerPoint later today. Thank you so much and have a great day.